Hello class, welcome to the next segment in the week 2 material, and in this segment we're going to talk about something that is typically referred to as an if-else block. So just to sort of start off here, we have a variable x and a variable y, kind of similar to what we had in the previous segment. So we set a variable x equal to 10, a variable y equal to 10, and here on line 4 we have the same if statements that we had before in pretty broad terms here. We're asking if two values are equivalent. So in this case, we're asking if the variable x is equal to the variable y, and we have an indentation associated with that. But now we have a little bit of a different story here, because now we have this thing called an else statement. So, and again, it's called an else statement because it's literally just the word else. But kind of the same setup as an if statement here, except here we have no condition appears after the else. And that's something that's important to keep in mind. You can't put a condition after the else, and I'll explain why very shortly. But another sort of formatting issue that you want to keep in mind is you want to make sure the colon appears after the else, just like the colon must appear at the end of the if. And also, just like the other things that end with colons in Python, that means that there's an indented statement below that, which is considered to be part of that block, as they're usually referred to. But the way that the computer is going to read this off is it's first going to test if this condition on line 4 is true. And if it is, it will run the indented statement that we see here on line 5. But if that condition up here fails, then the computer will jump down to the else and run whatever is indented below the else. So the else statement is basically a way of ensuring the computer will do something no matter what happens with this condition up here. And if this, so again, if this condition is, I don't know if I mentioned this, but if this condition is in fact met, then whatever's in the else will actually be ignored. If this condition on line 4 fails, then the computer will run in what appears below the else. So this is a way of getting the computer to ensure that it will do something no matter what happens with this condition on line 4. If the condition is met, then it will run that if statement like any other if statement that we had. If this condition fails or is not met, then it will jump down to whatever's indented below the else here. So this basically guarantees the computer will do something. And here I have two variables that are in fact equivalent. X and y do in fact equal to each other. So that means that this condition appears met, meaning what's on line 5 will be run. And since this condition was in fact met, that means the else part is ignored. So the computer is not going to do anything on line 6 or 7 because this condition up here was in fact met. And if we want to verify that result, then we should only see x and y are equal when we go to run this. And we'll see if that information appears in the console, and we can see only that information does in fact appear in the console. And just to sort of test the flip side of that, let's go ahead and change the values of x and y. So now I'll make sure that x and y are no longer equivalent, which should mean that this condition on line 4 will fail. Now that x and y are not equal to the same thing, that means that this condition fails, which means the computer will then jump down to the else statement and run whatever is indented directly below the else statement, which in this case is only the print statement that appears on line 7. And if we want to see what that result looks like, just to sort of verify that everything I said was true, we do in fact get the result of this print statement, which is x and y are not equal. So again, main takeaway message with the if-else block, well, a few main takeaway messages actually. No condition appears after the else, but you still have the colon at the end. And when you have the if-else block here, only one of these blocks, one of these indentations is actually going to run. The computer is only going to act on one of these indentations, and that all depends on what happens with this condition at the very top here. If this condition is met, then this indentation will run. If this condition fails, then this indentation will run. And also sort of a formatting issue that you'll want to keep in mind is the order here is also set in stone. So you can't have the else appearing before the if. If you were to attempt this, then you would get this lovely message saying invalid syntax. So make sure that the else appears after the if statement in order for this to actually function properly. So that's going to do it for this segment on if-else blocks. And in the next segment, we're going to sort of extend this concept even further, which gets a little interesting, but we will cross that bridge when we come to it in the next segment. So with that, I will see you all in the next segment.